Once upon a time, there were 25 tin soldiers that were in a box. The toy soldiers were brave and handsome. Each tin soldier wore a smart blue uniform. One soldier that had been made last had only one leg, as the toy maker had run out of tin. The one-legged tin soldier was as brave and handsome as all the other soldiers in the box. The box was given to a boy on his birthday. The boy placed the box in his room filled with wonderful toys. The tin soldier noticed a beautiful doll that stood on one leg in her ballerina pose. He fell in love with her at once, as he believed she stood on one leg just like him, and she was so lovely. The ballerina thought the tin soldier was so handsome. She fell in love with him at first sight, too. One day, the boy took the soldier out to play by the canal. He made a paper boat and put the tin soldier in it. All of a sudden, a big downpour whisked away the paper boat, and the brave tin soldier sailed quickly towards a dark tunnel. He was very brave and stood steadfast on his one leg. In the tunnel was a big rat who demanded to see the tin soldiers pass. The water came so fast that the rat could not catch the paper boat, and the tin soldier was happy to be out of the rat's reach. The tin soldier wondered what lay ahead as he stood bravely in his paper boat in the dark tunnel. He also wondered if he would ever see his true love, the ballerina, ever again. Suddenly, he heard a great wall of water. The tin soldier knew he was heading for the end of the tunnel, and a great waterfall must lay ahead. He stood bravely on his one leg as his soggy paper boat flipped end over end and sank into the whirlpool at the end of the waterfall. He thought to himself, "I will never see my ballerina again." All of a sudden, a great fish swallowed him up. It was so dark inside the giant fish, but the tin soldier was as brave as ever. After a long time, the fish was caught by a fisherman's hook. The fisherman took the fish home to cook for dinner. Upon cleaning the fish, the cook exclaimed, "Well, if it is not the young boy's toy tin soldier inside this fish." The tin soldier was thrilled to be home as the cook placed him back in the toy room. The tin soldier saw his sweet ballerina poised on her one leg across the room. The one-legged toy soldier smiled when the little boy approached. "Where have you been?" said the little boy. "You smell like fish and are so dirty." The little boy opened the window and tossed the tin soldier out the window. The tin soldier remained brave as he landed on a large bed of petunias below the window. The tin soldier was very sad, but he remained brave as he lay among the flowers. Just then, as the boy was playing with the ballerina on the window ledge, a gentle wind knocked the ballerina to the ground below. Straight into the petunia garden. The brave tin soldier could not believe his eyes when his ballerina landed right in front of him. The tin soldier asked her to stay with him and be his wife. "Yes," she exclaimed, "I thought you would never ask." The tin soldier and his ballerina were married in the flower garden below. In the moonlight, she would dance for him among the flower petals. They remained true to each other forever, living in the lovely flower garden as husband and wife. There once was a poor country man whose only inheritance to his 3 sons was his farm, his donkey, and his cat. The eldest son inherited the farm, the second eldest the donkey, and the youngest son inherited the cat. "What on earth will I do with a cat? I can barely feed myself," said the youngest son. "Let alone how can I offer this pet anything? I have no money and am so poor." "Don't worry," said the cat. "If you can get me a sack and a pair of boots, you will see I am the most valuable thing your father ever owned." The son brought the cat what he asked for, as he knew he had nothing to lose. The cat put on the boots and took the sack to catch a plump rabbit. The cat wore the boots on his journey. He would be called Puss in Boots. He caught a plump rabbit and brought it to the king. Puss in Boots told the king the plump rabbit was a gift from his master, the Duke of Carabas. For several weeks, Puss in Boots brought the king many gifts from his master. The king was very curious about Puss in Boots and his master, the Duke of Carabas. But the king knew that the Duke was friendly and had the most well-behaved cat he had ever met. The king did not know that Puss in Boots had made up the name Duke of Carabas for his poor master. One day, the king and his daughter were riding in their carriage by the river. Puss in Boots told his master to take off his pants and shirt and jump in the river. His master agreed to do so. Then Puss in Boots yelled out, "Help! Help! The Duke of Carabas is drowning!" as the king's coach passed by him. The king ordered his driver to stop, and he told his guards to rush over and save the Duke of Carabas. The king saw Puss in Boots yelling and knew he must help him, as he had been so generous to the king. Puss told the king the Duke's clothes had been stolen. So the king offered the Duke a fine suit of his own clothes to put on. The Duke of Carabas got in the carriage for a ride. The king's daughter quietly told the Duke he looked very handsome. The Duke looked at her and told her she was very beautiful. Along the way, Puss had asked all the farmers and workers on the road, "If the king drives by, you must tell him the owner of all these lands is the Duke of Carabas, or the ogre who lives in the castle will eat you." All the farmers and workers answered when asked that the Duke of Carabas was their landowner when the king asked them. Puss in Boots ran ahead to the ogre's castle and asked the ogre about the trick he could do by changing into a small mouse from a big ogre. Puss in Boots told the ogre no one believed he could do a trick like that. The ogre said, "Watch me," as he turned into a small little mouse. Puss in Boots grabbed the mouse and ate it up, and that was the end of the big bad ogre. Just then, the king's carriage arrived at the castle gate. Puss in Boots ran to meet the carriage and said, "Welcome to the castle of the Duke of Carabas." His master could not believe what was happening. On the long ride in the carriage, he had fallen in love with the king's daughter. And Puss in Boots had planned everything to work out perfectly. The Duke asked the king if he could marry his daughter. And the king said, "Yes, of course." The Duke of Carabas and the princess were married and lived happily ever after in their castle. Puss in Boots was named a great lord and never had to hunt for mice ever again. Puss in Boots proved he was the best inheritance, as he had promised his master. Once, there was a little farm with a pond full of geese and ducks. On a fine spring morning, a mother duck felt her eggs start to crack beneath her. One by one, all the eggs broke open, with each new baby duckling cuter than ever. Until the last egg broke open. The duckling did not look like the other cute little ducklings. He was gray and clumsy and way too big. The mother duck thought, "How big and clumsy this duckling is." But she loved him just as much as the other ducklings. The next day, the mother duck took her ducklings to meet the other farm animals. As soon as they entered the farmyard, the other animals started to call the gray duckling names. "Look at the ugly duckling," said a mean old goose. Soon, his own brothers and sisters were calling him names. They called him Ugly Duckling. This went on for days, and the ugly duckling decided to run far away. He ran deep into the field. He finally came upon a pond full of geese. It was nighttime, so he fell asleep in the tall grass surrounding the pond. In the morning, the ugly duckling was just about to meet the geese when they were scared by a hunter and his dogs. The ugly duckling stayed in the long grass and hid from the hunter and his scary dogs. When he was sure they were gone, he started to walk towards a cottage he could see. An old woman lived there with her prize hen and cat. The old woman let the ugly duckling stay because she thought she could fatten up the duck to sell him at the market. The prize hen and the cat were very rude to the ugly duckling, and besides, there was no water for him to swim on here. So the ugly duckling snuck away one night to find a lake. He found a nice lake, but none of the other birds spoke to him. They thought he was too ugly to bother with. One day, a beautiful flock of white birds with long necks flew overhead. The ugly duckling began to cry, but he had no idea why. It was getting colder, and soon all the other birds left the pond because winter was coming. The ugly duckling stayed and awoke one morning to find his feet frozen in the lake. A nice, kind farmer found the ugly duckling and saved him. He thought he would be a nice house pet for his children, so he brought the ugly duckling home. His wife and children were not very happy with the ugly duckling, and so the ugly duckling snuck away to find a new home. It was winter, and the ugly duckling found a spot on a pond's edge. He built a nest. He was safely hidden to snuggle away the whole winter. Finally, spring arrived, and the pond thawed. The ugly duckling spread his wings. He found his wings grew very strong during the winter. The ugly duckling landed gracefully on the lovely pond. Just as he landed, he noticed 3 snowy swans near the pond's shore. He felt the same way he had had the first time he saw them fly overhead. The ugly duckling slowly swam over to meet the swans, and then, as the ugly duckling swam, he noticed his own reflection. What do you think he saw? His own reflection was that of a beautiful white swan. You see, over the winter, the ugly gray duckling had grown into a beautiful, white, graceful swan. And he was the most beautiful bird of all. The new swans welcomed their new swan friend. The swans were so very nice to the ugly duckling, who was now a stunning white swan. The ugly duckling promised himself he would never forget the lessons he had learned as a young ugly duckling, as he lived happily ever after with his new family on the beautiful pond.
Wow.